Welcome back to the series. So far we have seen the AutoCAD interface. We have learned how to draw lines, circles, and then rectangles. Then we have also used the drawing aids just like the grid and snap to keep things neat. In this episode, we are going to look at how the modifying tools help us to finish our drawing. So some things like the move, the copy, the erase, the trim, and extend, how these can help us to finish our drawing faster so that we don't redraw certain objects that we can just modify. But before we go on to the modifying tools, let's look at a very important part of AutoCAD, how to go around the software using a basic mouse that has 3 buttons. Just as we studied from a previous video, the navigation bar can help us to move around our drawing. It has the zoom, the pan, and other options that can help us to move around our drawing. But a mouse with a scroll wheel can also do this just by scrolling up or down, so that we can always get smaller things becoming bigger, or when you have a drawing that is too big on the screen, you can make it smaller so that you can draw. We can also use the pan on the navigation bar to move the screen in any direction, left, right, up, or down. So depending on what you are doing, you would want to move certain objects into focus or to certain parts where you think you can draw them easier. But with the mouse, you just click the middle mouse button in so that we see the hand or the pan hand appearing on the screen, and we can use that whilst holding the mouse button to move the drawing around. Okay, so now let's move on to the modifying tools. In one of the videos, we said the tools are arranged or put in groups for easier identification. So when we go to the Home tab, we see the modifying tools separated from other tools with a line. So we have the move, copy, rotate, and then the other options. Let's see them one by one. So let's start with the move tool. How does it work? It picks up objects and relocates them to somewhere else in your drawing. And it just picks up the object so that it doesn't change size or shape or its orientation, and it will place it anywhere you want on the screen. So to use the tools, there are 2 ways. You can either select the object first or select the tool before you select your objects. But then I always recommend that we select our objects first before we go on to select the tool that we want to use. So this is the procedure. First, select your object. Then go to the tool that you want to use, for instance, the move tool. Then you have to pick a point on the object where you want to move the object from, such that wherever you hold the object from, AutoCAD allows you to move. But if, for instance, I want to place the center of a circle on another object, then I have to hold the object from the center. You can even decide to hold the object from outside the object. So AutoCAD allows you to do anything, but because you want to place certain objects or certain parts of drawings on particular places, you always use the cursor or the crosshair to move or to hold the object exactly where you want to place it. And you can always use the drawing aid such as the O-snap to pick objects from exactly where you want to pick them and then drop them exactly where you want to drop them. Also, you can use something like the auto mode to move objects in horizontal or vertical motion only. So we have studied the drawing aids in a previous session. Now let's look at the next tool, which is the copy tool. The copy tool works just like the move tool. The only difference is that the copy tool allows you to make multiple copies, as many copies as you want for the same object. And it allows you to place them at different points as many times as you want. So with the same procedure, we select the object, we go to the copy tool, and then we select the point on the object where we want to copy the object from. Then we just keep placing them anywhere we want. When we are done, we just press enter or escape. The next tool is the stretch tool, which I usually don't recommend because most times you will be drawing with dimensions. And if you have your dimensions, why would you want to stretch? But let's look at it anyways. So the stretch tool moves the vertices or endpoints of an object while leaving the rest of the object at where they are. So it is used to lengthen, shorten, or reshape an object. Along the line, we'll look at how to stretch or lengthen a line by just using the endpoints. So when we draw lines like construction lines, which do not require any dimension, we can just lengthen or stretch them to points where we see fit. Then let's look at the next tool, which is the rotate tool. This tool might be useful depending on what you are doing, and it is used to rotate objects about a fixed point, and that fixed point we are supposed to select in AutoCAD. To use the rotate tool, what I first do is to select the object, then I'll go to the rotate tool, and rotate tool will ask me to select a rotation point. So I can select a rotation point on the object, within the object, or outside the object, which just becomes a point of rotation for the object to move around. Then there is the mirror tool. The mirror tool creates a flipped copy of an object. What it means is that the top becomes the bottom, the left becomes the right. So it's just like the copy tool, but this time around, it flips an object just like a mirror works. And we are supposed to provide AutoCAD with the mirror line. So the mirror line tells AutoCAD where exactly we are supposed to flip the object at. So it's just like placing a mirror in front of the object and then flipping it on the other side of the mirror. The next tool is the scale tool. This tool just shrinks or enlarges objects by a factor that we give to AutoCAD. So you can just decide to enlarge or shrink an object, but like I'm saying, once you are drawing with dimensions, you should always try not to use tools like the scale tool or the stretch tool. Then let's look at two most important modifying tools, the trim and the extend. These tools are put under one button. The trim just works like a pair of scissors, and the extend tool works like an extension tool used to extend a line to the next object. So the trim tool cuts any line between any two objects, such that when there is a line between two objects, you can use the trim tool to cut it. It can also cut an extension of a line or a line that extends beyond its boundaries. So when you have a line that extends outside the object that you are drawing, you can just use the trim tool to cut it off. Just like the trim tool, the extend tool can also be used to extend lines to other objects. So when there is another object beyond that line, we can always extend it to that object. However, we cannot extend a line to infinity. So there should always be an object where we want to extend our lines to. It becomes very difficult when we want to use the extend tool on an object, especially when it is bounded or when it is drawn using the polyline tool. And we can always use the explode tool to explode or to separate the individual lines from the parent object. Just like we've studied, there is always a keyboard shortcut for all these tools. So to use the trim tool, we type TR, then we press enter. Then to use the extend tool, we type EX, and we press enter. So the explode tool just breaks complex objects into their individual lines or individual objects, so that we can now modify the individual objects instead of the whole object. So to explode a polyline or any object drawn or bounded by polylines, I just select the object first, and I go to the explode tool and then click on it, and then it separates the individual objects so that I can modify them one by one. Now let's look at the fillet and the chamfer creation tool. So a fillet is basically a part of a circle that is found at the end of where two lines meet, such that the two lines do not create a corner anymore, but a rounded corner. Before we look at the fillet tool, let's look at how we can also use the tan radius to get the same effect. So I go to my tan radius circle option. I select my first line, select the second line, then enter the radius of the fillet. Then I can trim the parts of the lines that I have there that I don't need. Then I have the fillet that I want. Things become simpler and easier if we know how to use the fillet tool. So what we do is we select the fillet tool, then we go to the command line and then select the type of fillet. Along the line, when we start to draw, we'll look at the different types of fillets. So the tan radius can work, the fillet tool can also work, whichever is faster or whichever fits your drawing style will be the one that will always work for you. The chamfer tool works in the same fashion. However, it doesn't create a rounded corner. It cuts a corner so that it is no more sharp. To use the chamfer tool, you first select the tool. Then you go to the command line and then select an option. Let's use the distance option. So what we first do is select the distance. Then we are supposed to enter the first distance. Press enter, enter the second distance and press enter. Then we'll go and then select our first line, then select the second line. Then AutoCAD automatically creates an angled edge between the two lines so that we no more have a sharp corner. So the chamfer tool also has several options on the command line, which we are going to look at when we start drawing our first few AutoCAD examples. The arrow tool can be used to create multiple copies of the same object in rows, in columns, in circles, or along a pattern. Now, in some of our drawings, you'll see the importance of the arrow tool, such that certain lines or certain objects that repeat themselves in the same distances can just be drawn by using the arrow tool. We just draw one object, go to the right arrow tool, and then we can make multiple copies along a path or in circles or even in a rectangular form. We can control everything that we want in our array creation tool so that we can select the number of rows, the number of columns, the spacing between the rows and the columns, and even the direction of the array. So that is the options that the array tool gives us. The path array creates the array along a certain path, so that by just looking at the command line, select your object, press enter, select the path that you want the array to be created on, press enter again, then it creates a copy or multiple copies of the same object on that path. And you can always edit the number of copies, the spacing between them, and other options in the array creation tool. We will look at the importance of all these when we start to draw our first few AutoCAD examples. Then let's look at the erase tool, which is different from the trim tool. So the erase tool is used to erase entire objects, unlike the trim tool, which is used to cut only parts of the objects that we don't need. Then the last tool, which is actually one of the most important modifying tools, is the offset tool. It is used to create parallel copies of objects at precise distances that you specify. So how do we use the tool? We first select the object, then we go to the tool, click on the offset tool, then we enter the distance by which we want to set off the object. Then we press enter. Then we can either move to the left or to the right of the tool, and then AutoCAD will automatically offset or set off the object by that distance. We can also decide to select the offset tool first. Select the offset tool, then you enter the distance, and then now we go on to select the object. Once we click on the object, when we move to the right, AutoCAD moves or copies the object to the right by that distance. When we move to the left, it copies it by that distance. So these are the important ones that we've studied. There are other ones below where we can unravel the modifying tools and then use. Those ones are not used constantly or not very important like the ones already shown. Along the line, when we need other modifying tools, we will learn how to use them whilst drawing.